Okay.
That's great. Oh, this is one wall of, I've been building a room for a traveling show for the past 3 years. And the room is all constructed. It's in my studio, actually, in sections. And this is one wall of those, of that room. And then there's a lot of animals and things that go in it.
I guess I was looking at when you were sitting down above your head by the louvered doors. There's something on the ceiling there. Is that a rifle or a paintbrush or?
No, I use a certain type of pen, these dip pens, and I'll put it against my shirt so you can see it.
Yes.
And there's a coppersmith that lives up on the way to Syracuse, and he made a giant one for me.
Wow.
I guess it's about 6.5, 7 feet long.
Yeah, and, fascinating.
Yeah. So, he was starving to death, and I didn't feel sorry for him. He was a coppersmith, but he used to put roofs on houses in New York City and Westchester, and but he also made a beautiful fish, a goldfish weather vane for me, and it's spectacular, unbelievable. So it's in the studio also. So.
So Roger, can you tell us a little bit about how you paint? You paint with that. You start by drawing, right? With the ink.
That's right. Let me. Can I add that second camera, Carol?
Of course, yeah.
And were you able to send a note to Karen Barnes?
I did.
Oh, thank you so much. So, and then now, if I bring this up, can you make this the host screen? This one, or?
It's on.
Is that
that's what she's done.
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yep.
And so I prepared a couple of demos today. So let me just get at it, and then I'll go briefly with this so I can spend more time on the watercolors. But I wanted to show you a couple of things before we begin. And I do a lot of books on blurb.com, so I would recommend that you either look at my website or emails, and you can get a book bound and published in about a week. And they're not cheap. You can't make any money selling them, but you do have a nice record of what you've done. This one is a Nantucket sketchbook, and there's one of all of my watercolors, the larger ones. And then I was lucky enough to have a couple of articles about my work in, this is a British The Artist magazine, and they sent me just did a lovely, 5 or 6 page story on it.
Very nice.
That was nice, from July 2019. And then this, the other one is The Artist magazine, a US magazine, and they really went crazy and gave me a lot of space here. And so that's always fun to, to get some extended visibility for your work.
Sure.
A family that lives in this building in New York City. This is the Alwyn Court building on Broadway, and it's a ceramic tile building, so it's all terracotta. And but they bought that painting. And then during the summer, I'm an avid gardener, and this is a magazine article on the gardens around the house here, and they go across the street now, and we bought another 4 or 5 acres over there. So, but that's not all gardens. So if you come by through Cazenovia during the summer, stop and say hello, and you'll get a kick out of those. I have a few things here, and I won't show you too many of these, but I bind my own sketchbooks now, and I couldn't get books that I really liked, and they were always the wrong size and too thick or too thin, and so now I bought a spiral binder, and this is all Arches paper, so that's the key to what I do. And some of these I had bound at the university, and I just got reminded of that. Someone must have been eating a ham sandwich when they were making the binding it for me because there's all greasy fingerprints all over the inside. But then I was really annoyed for a while. Then I realized that texture is absolutely beautiful. And then I started sticking my own greasy fingerprints on everything because it looked so nice, you know. So, and
Roger, how many pages would you put in one of these books?
oh, some of them are about 12, so that'd be 24 pages.
Okay.
Here, 5, 6. This might have about 14 pages in it, so it'd be 28 single pages. And some of them I tip the painting into it, so it's just tipped in with white tape in the background, you know, underneath it. So, but it's a really nice way to work, and you can just bring it on the road with you when you travel, and so sometimes I just do the sketching, you know, and then sit down later on and then do the painting. So there's lots of those now. And this is a Moleskin sketchbook. You can get these at Barnes and Noble. And I make I press a leather cover on it, and so
really
that texture there. I like to personalize them, and and this is like a heavier weight paper that's a nice spread here. I'll bring it up so you can kind of see it. And there's always an illustrated frontispiece in it that is kind of fancy. So anyway, so that's kind of important to me. And over the past number of years, I've been working on these boxes. These are travel boxes for artists. I don't sell them. If someone came to me recently and their last name was DeMuth, they found me through the internet somehow, and but I make a lot of boxes. This is a traveling box here, and they have everything in them that you need to do artwork on the road. Always comes with a pencil, a dip pen. I use a dip pen quite a bit, and a bottle of ink. And this is an old Gillette razor container. And I found it at the flea market, but now I've bought quite a few of these on eBay. You can find them easily there.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's 1906, and it was a razor. I just took the razor and threw it away. And it's a copper or brass nickel silver box. But look at that. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
So that'd be arts and crafts movement style, but it's probably the nicest box I've ever had. And then I made the dividers, and I do it a little differently now. I used a plexiglass cutter to do this. It's all clunky, and then I cut my brushes to fit inside, so that's kind of nice. And then these are some of the sketches. I belonged to the Syracuse Sketchers for a while, and we'd go out every week, and they go out once a month, I think, as a group. And but I just got too busy with the gardens and couldn't join them. So, but now we have a group.
Roger, excuse me, I have a question. I really want to ask you. These are just beautiful. Go back a second to the one underneath. The meeting.
The meeting. Yeah, this is.
How long would that take? That's always the question people ask every artist.
Well, I would just start. The meetings are great because nobody moves around.
Right.
And so I like to draw at meetings, and I was trained in faculty meetings at the university for 2-hour faculty meetings that no one ever really moved around too much. So it was like perfect to draw there. This, I would just start out with one spot on someone's head and then just build the whole composition around that. This probably was about hour and a half, 2 hours perhaps. And then I painted it when I got home. And
very nice.
So usually there's some notes on the back of these things, and I sent the village board a copy of it so they could see themselves. The likenesses are not always the best, but anyway. So this is one of the traveling boxes, and let me just set this back here. And then I make some other ones, and I won't go into these too much, but let me bring this down just a hair. Yep. So you can see these little ones here. This is one of the boxes, came from Amazon somewhere, and then I made little dividers here, and now I use a laser, and the university has a service where they'll die cut something for you. So this is
Wow.
a standard box, and then I make the dividers, and they're just made of 1/4-inch plexiglass, and I just slip them in, glue them in place, and then put the pigments in, and I put all Winsor & Newton. And then this box contains everything I need: a little water dish, pencil, eraser, etc. And then this box is kind of a special one, and this is the deluxe model with the googly eyes in it. And it's an Excedrin headache container for aspirin, and but it has all the dividers and folding brushes in it, and kind of fun. Then it also has little miniature paintings. Let me see if I can pull in on this so you can see them.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Someone on the airplane, and
Right.
And then it came also with, I made this book. This is all leather on the outside, and then it's all painted on the inside. I made the book first, and then let me see if I can bring it up here a little bit.
Mhm.
Keep people on the plane. Oh, this was a meeting, a retirement meeting for someone at a restaurant. I don't remember who, but it was a nice drawing anyway. Jimi Hendrix. And a concert in the park here with 100 people in it. So it's kind of fun. And when you push yourself to do things like this, it opens up all new doors. Yeah. So anyway, so you know about that part. And I'll get all this stuff out of the way. Then I use some kind of clever ways to I'll bring this up, and if you ever any of you have any questions, you could just ask away. And this is a
Everybody's been muted, so if you have a question, you have to unmute yourself.
well, yes, and they could also ask at the end too. Doesn't matter.
Or-
And this I work in Photoshop on the computer, and I do all my composition in Photoshop. So this way is a way where you don't need that. You can just cut out a picture and then paste it down or tape it down where you want it. And I've taped down a couple of things here. And this is just a transfer desk. And all it is a foam core desk, like two ends of a box. And all it is just meant to hold this piece of paper in place, and then I tape it down. Then I fold this up like this, and so I can just butt it up against it. And then all I do is hold the pencil and put a little dot on the page. Then I hold it this way, put a little dot on the page, and then I connect the dots. So this is one way that I do the transferring of the major lines, and very easy to make. And I made all sorts of these. There's ones that are large ones, small ones. Let me show you this one. It's kind of fun. This is this one's meant to sit down while you're watching television. So it's got two curved holes for your legs sitting in a chair, so you can work.
Roger, you are the ultimate handyman.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I do a lot of photo manipulation. So this is a standard picture I would take, but it was very tall, and this roof line was way up higher. So I would just copy and paste it and bring it down. And I'm not sure you can see some cut marks in here, but
No.
that's the way I work. And
Nice.
So it's an easy way to transfer the images. But I also work on using a projector, and I project an image, and I use this same setup that I have here in front of me. So let me just start with this. And I posted. I'll probably get carried away here, so maybe it's best to, if you could go to my YouTube page tomorrow, yes, or anytime, and there's two videos that I put together. One on how I do the photo manipulation, which is only 2 minutes, and the other one is a 5-minute video on start to finish of the painting I'm going to work on tonight. So for the demo, I had some trouble jumping back and forth with this, and it made it freeze up on me, and so I'm a little hesitant to do that in front of you. But I'll try it a little later, but let's just see how this goes. And this is the painting I'm going to work on today. And I did, I don't know, 7 or 9 of them in the past month or two. It's a lovely street in Nantucket. And this is the way I work. So I would take a lot of pictures, then choose the ones I want to use. And then I would stitch them together using Photoshop. And then this would be the finished collaged image. But then I would lighten up areas, like in the background. I'd make these trees bigger. I added a figure. I got rid of a car. I moved the street closer together. Streets are too wide for artists. And so I cut it in half. I brought, if you look at this photo compared to this one, this porch is way over here, and I've brought it way towards the telephone pole, and made these other buildings quite a bit larger. Got rid of all the wires in the sky. Added a new sky that's a little more interesting looking. So let me start with my demo. And let me just tip this upside down. I hope this will work. I work on Arches paper mostly, but I do have a collection of Fabriano paper. This is the sketch or the inking that I prepared for tonight.
Roger, excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Do you prefer Arches or Fabriano, or what's the difference in your mind between the two? Why would you pick one?
I think they're all owned by the same company now. Yeah, and some people complain about Arches, but I've always used it. Probably that was when they used gelatin sizing from animal products, and now they use a vegetable sizing, so maybe that's part of the difference. Some pieces, it depends on the texture mostly. This is a hot press, and it doesn't have much texture to it, so it's good for pen and ink work.
Right.
And I do have other board. Here's one that's cold press, and this is 300-pound weight. It's very heavy, and but it's 100% rag. It doesn't discolor over time. I think they've added buffers to it, and it's just great paper. I treasure every piece of it, and I have enough to last many years, and I use it a lot. But I save all the scraps too, and I do little tiny paintings too. Here's one right here. It's about 2 by 3 inches, and I did 78 of these. Yeah, so once I get started, I'm good. So let me prepare I'm using, and I've put all the inking is all done, and I don't usually touch the paper. I try to stay away from that, but I do, I mask it out a little bit, and I bend the tape a little bit as I'm putting it on, because I have a slightly irregular edge of the watercolors, and then I just hold it down. Let's see, I could use another inch of room here, I think. All right, and my palette is right here. It's a Robert Wood palette. It's got quite a few little rectangular pans in it. You can buy them separately at Dick Blick's or Cheap Joe's or etc. There.
What kind of pen and ink are you using, Roger?
Oh, this, I found it at the flea market. It changed my life. This is it. This is an Esterbrook 757 medium oval school point. And I think it was for children in school because it's got a little ball on the bottom of it. Not too many of them have such a pronounced, it's a little bead at the end of it. And it doesn't snag on the paper as much as some of the other ones do. So I also keep it at a very low angle, so I kind of brush it along like this.
And you use India ink or what?
Yeah, and I have a little, this is a piece of cheap artist canvas here, and I put some tape on it, and I just stuck a jar of Higgins Black Magic India ink on it, so it won't tip over. And very important that it not tip over.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm dipping the pen in the ink, I also wipe it as I'm leaving the lip of the jar, so it gets rid of any excess, so it doesn't blob in the painting at all. So, and you can buy these tips, Esterbrook 757, and that's that big one behind me, the one that you mentioned, Mike, the copper one. And it's got a cork, and I bought boxes of these on eBay over the years, full boxes. There's 24 handles, and I have more of these 757s than anyone else on earth. With the boxes came 12 dozen. So there were 144 nibs per box, and I would only buy full boxes. So I own them all. You can still find them. Grab a drink of water a minute. So I'm almost done framing this with tape, and then I'll go into the pigments in a minute. And it's all right if it doesn't match exactly. It's kind of nice when it's a little looser, and but this will keep all the pigment from slipping underneath it. And when you peel it off, you'll have a nice clean edge on it. Then sometimes I mat it so that the whole painting is, it has a little space around it, about 1/4 of an inch. Sometimes I just mat it, and it jumps over the edge a little bit. And then when I was working on this the other day, on my, let me see if I have my color chart here. So here's the color chart, and I was thinking that I had this little one right here. So I'm going to do some paintings that have a very large central painting, and then a little tiny vignette down at the bottom of them. So this will all be white, of course, and but I do all my own framing and matting, and if I didn't, I'd go broke. The framers, I like them. They do a great job. They're really good at what they do, but they're very expensive, and I'm in too many, shows and things like that. Well, up till this year, now it's kind of a little laid back. But anyway, so here it's all ready to go. And then next I would, and I have this laid out here, I have a couple of scraps of watercolor paper that I put right next to the painting, tape it down. And then, can you see the whole palette? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I use these square water dishes. I got them at Tops. It came with a lid. I threw the lids away. And I have one for dirty water, one for clear water, but I have to change them every now and then. And then I have some eyedroppers, and there's one here. And I just go along and add a little water to my pigments. I moistened them up yesterday and left the cover attached, so they're pretty moist already. And these have been in there for years. And sorry, they dry out, they get moist again. Doesn't seem to deteriorate the image at all. And then on my brushes, I pulled out a bunch of brushes. I bought an artist studio that was a giant estate here in Casanova. The matriarch died, and she left the place to two nieces, one in England, one in Philadelphia. They had to disperse everything for tax purposes in England. And she had 100 carriages in her collection. It's a giant estate. You know, it's like one of those, it's like the Pavilion, New York, Linwood, you know, one of those big old places. But these are some of the squirrel hair brushes that I bought at the place. I thought you'd like seeing them.
Yeah.
They must be 100 years old. And these are goose quills that right here. And this is squirrel hair. I don't use them, but they're more for show than anything, but I have a drawer of them. And then I pulled out a few brushes that I like. The one I usually use is a Grumbacher brush. I know, it just feels a little better. But there's a couple of Grumbachers I use. This is a Percy Baker from England. This is an Isabey brush. I'm not even sure they make this is a Series 7 Winsor & Newton. Those are great brushes. And I bought some brushes at the art supply store. And these are quite remarkable. This is number 20 brush, and this is a number 10 brush. And these are by Princeton. I don't know where you can see them, but anyway, they're just beautiful, beautiful brushes. And you know, I've paid up to maybe $50 or $60, some a little bit more. And these were $6. This big one was $6, and this one was $4. You know, and they're beautiful. You know, fake sable. And so that's the one good thing about making brushes in India. It's very inexpensive. So I'll leave all my brushes at the top there. And this is a bamboo carrier. It's great for travel. You roll up your brushes in it and then tie it shut, and then it doesn't damage any of the points on it. So it's a really good thing. So,
very nice.
Yeah, that's nice. So I'll start now, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Yes. And I use, let me show you the pigments here. So I'll go around, and this, I always line this up. So I work the same way. So the yellows are along the edge, the browns, the reds, and then the blues, and then the greens over here. And I don't want to be too happy with my colors, so I tone things down a little bit. But you know, I just experiment with it. Sometimes I put a yellow sky in that is completely unnatural. Sometimes maybe it isn't. But anyway, so the pigments are over here, and let me just start. And I'll start with a cobalt blue color, and then I always work the colors outside here. And I want to create a little bit of a. So I'm going to do the clouds first. And I'll make it very, very thin. So I do all the mostly water washes first. Not sure how this is going to work out today, but I want to leave a lot of white space in it. I want a lot of white punching through my paintings. And I usually work pretty quickly on the skies. And then it doesn't matter because you're going to be covering it, the other areas with pigment. So that's the kind of the beauty of watercolors is that you know, you put the lightest colors on first, and then later on you'll come back over the top of them. And so there's the roughed out sky. I studied some ancient German watercolor, an English watercolorist, but paintings of Germany. And excuse me, he painted the whole sky a really dark blue, but then covered the whole perimeter of it with white, and it created this sense of depth. So there was a lot of depth to all of his paintings. They were spectacular, and I'll mix some of my colors as I go around to kind of neutralize the gray, so it's not too blue and not too somber. And then so what I'm going to work on and I want to keep it really kind of rough. if I drag the brush kind of along the surface, it gives it a rough texture to it, and so I don't want to be too perfect in here. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to do some of the windows so that there's reflection. Excuse me, in the windows, and I'll go through all of these. We used to go to Nantucket before the season and or after the season. And if you go during the season, you won't get any reservations in a restaurant, and everybody will be rude to you. And it's a terrible experience actually. But we stayed at every place we could find with our kids, and then we found a place called the Century House, and we stayed up in the attic, and they had a room there for $300 a night.
Wow.
And I asked the owner, after a year or two of staying in that room, and I bumped my head into the ceiling every time I went to the bathroom, and it was awful. And I said, how much is the room on the second floor with the desk in it? And she said, $595. And I said, a night?
Wow.
It is, yeah. But then they had an artist residence program off season where you could go, and they were the sweetest couple. And so we stayed there from that time on, and we had the room with the desk, and I traded a couple of small watercolors for the room, and they just sold it recently. They have a house in Palm Beach too, and she was a realtor.
I can understand how she got the room in Palm Beach.
Yeah. Well, they did well.
I could tell.
It was a nice place. The food was delicious, and they were just a sweet couple to stay with. And so we had a lot of fun there. And so here I've gone around and I've done all the windows. I think I've done most of them anyway. I think there's a couple that are still yet to go. And this it'll buy me a little time here to let it dry so I don't get too crazy with the washes. And there's also some white areas here too. And I'll put some burnt sienna into this to make it more of a bluish brown gray. And I'll just be kind of haphazard with the washes because they're going to be covered up with green ivy, and these are white fences. And there's Nantucket is a funny place. Everything's perfect, and it's there was a boat slip that sold for $500,000 in the harbor recently, just for the boat to stay in. So and there was a man that brought his giant. The corporate heads all live in Nantucket, so they travel around and they just tell their captain and whoever the crew is to meet them in Nantucket on the second week of October or something, And so they move the boat up there. And there was one man that had a boat that was 100 feet long or so, and but he didn't like staying on the boat, so he stayed in a hotel while he was in Nantucket. He didn't like sleeping on the boat. I don't know. It's a funny place, but it was fun to go to. And so if you go down this road and then make a right up the hill and then come around the corner, that's called that was the Century House where we stayed on Cliff Road. So now you know where that is. So now I'm going to work a little bit on put the light washes on the brick pathways. All the sidewalks are brick in Nantucket, which is quite lovely for artists. And or they use a little bit of cobblestones in there too. So usually these places have a lovely brick path, and then it's kind of broken up with. So what I'm doing is I'm laying in some heavier washes with, and I work pretty quick. I mean, I've done this a lot. You can't make too many mistakes, but when I did the 8 or 9 paintings as a kind of a preliminary for my demo tonight, I in my video it says every one of them looked problematic, and it looked like there's a point where you just hate what you've done. It's just terrible, that you just start out and you got too heavy, or the washes weren't working for you, or whatever it is. But then after a while you regroup and it gets better. So
Magic.
I try to take advantage. Can you see these washes? They look a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you see? Does it look like there's any color I'm putting on here?
A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I had trouble with today was trying to figure out the color, and this is kind of a gray. The cedar shingles turn a beautiful gray because of the salt air in Nantucket, and it really is a pretty color. And but nobody can afford a house there anymore. A little garage was $500,000, and so it's not really a place that And I thought in a few years how could there be any young kids left on that island? That I'm probably wrong, but that when a house is $3 million, what are you going to do there? So.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is an ink drawing. Do you do paintings with pencil drawings also?
Yeah. In fact, I did one for tonight also. Oh, let me go get it. I have my rolling cart here. So yeah, I did one the same size. And this is all pencil. And I like the looks of it. There's... and I was trying to get away from the heavy black outline, and so that's the reason I did those 78 little tiny watercolors. They're all pencil line, and so I try to switch around. I also get bored very quickly, and so it's a good device to change a little bit and start to work in a different direction a little bit. And some of these washes are a little on the wet side, but I'll still go over the top of them with a little bit of color to them. And sometimes when they bleed into one another, that's not a bad thing. And I'll just push it out of the way with, and then in here there would be a little shadow down at the end of this. I have my reference in front of me, so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And so let's see how I'm doing. That I have the sky roughed in with I've left a lot of white areas in the sky. And next I'm going to just work on a couple of, I like the cobalt blue a little bit because it leaves that kind of granular residue left over in the sky.
Yep.
And I don't know what's in it. Maybe it's just not as finely ground as some of the other pigments, or maybe there's something in the cobalt that causes that kind of puddling type of look to it. And so here I've added this may come out terrible and it'll look awful, but maybe not. And then I'll do the same here to start to give it a little punch in the sky. And I also waited a few minutes for the paint to dry a little bit, so it didn't bleed as much in there. So so in the morning I get up, I go right on the computer, get my mail, and have my coffee, and then I start working in Photoshop, and I start to manipulate images. I've been building this room for 3 years now, a little more than that now. And let's see what I got in here, a little bit down in here. So, and I work on manipulating the images, and I work in water-soluble oil paints. and which are actually kind of fun. And I've prepared, so I have hundreds of paintings that I'm working on at the same time. This is a pencil drawing on a gessoed board, and this is an old hotel in a town called Smyrna, not too far from here, a little town with nothing left in it. And but this will be used around so it'll go around a large painting. And but there's 40 or 50 of them right there in a stack. And I have several hundred more paintings to do for this room. I've done about 200 something, and I'm up to painting 400 and about 445 or 6 now. So it's a monumental task. And if you get to Skinny Atlas, do you know that town?
Yeah.
Sure.
On Route 20? Behind the library, there's a place called the Barrows Museum. It's part of the library, but it's only open on the weekends during the fall, and I think it's open during the week in the summer. But he built the back of the library and then gave 350 paintings to the library, and that's his own private museum. He lived in New York and then came to Skinny Atlas in the 1870s. And I got so inspired by his room that I built my own room. So, and this one's for a traveling show. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to just go and darken around the windows a little bit, give them a little pop to them, and give them a little dark here. And so I just love what he did. I liked it so much I bought one of his paintings. There's one in the corner here, quite a nice one of a figure that looks like Abraham Lincoln. And it isn't Abraham Lincoln, but I'm calling it Abraham Lincoln because it would be worth twice or three times what it's worth. But they go for.
What did you use to get what colors did you put together to get that very black color?
Oh, I used Payne's Gray mixed with burnt sienna.
Okay.
And it makes just a lovely, that really nice dark area up in here. And I think it looks a little darker in real life than it does on the screen. I tried to adjust the screen today, but I wasn't really comfortable with it. And after a while, I just left it. And I have a whole bunch of lights here during the daytime. It got flooded out, so you couldn't see the mixing tray, the colors there. But it seems to be a little better now.
Oh, it's working pretty nice now.
Oh, thanks. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow now, and I'll start to do the underwashes on the house. I don't want it to be too yellow. No colors are blaring in Nantucket. They're all kind of subdued and somber. And but this building here is 18, or it could be early 1800s. It could have been an inn. It is now. And it has shingles on the side, or shakes. They look like shingles, I guess. And then it has clapboard front on it. And so I'm going to just put a real thin wash to start and it has white trim on it. So that kind of helps me because then my paint doesn't run together. And so I'll just put a thin wash of a yellowish, clapboard, and but kind of a subtle one. Some people use clapboard in Nantucket, but they make it shiny. It's like they use a super marine glossy paint.
Wow.
It's dreadful. It's terrible. You look at it and you think you're at Bloomingdale's in New York City. I don't know, it just looks weird to me. But one of the places that I like the most is a man that has this house that he's never painted it in his whole lifetime. He must be in his 80s, maybe 90. And he's got a junkyard in the back of his house on Nantucket. It's on Orange Street. And I stopped there and looked around, and I just was kind of laughing because there's no junkyards in Nantucket. These houses are millions of dollars. How could you have a junkyard? And the junk is all iron and metal and tiles. And, so you'd go there if you needed a drainage tile, a historic one perhaps. And his house is all falling apart. The birds have eaten the bricks in the basement for the salt, I guess. And anyway, I think it's the prettiest house on the island. And I've gotten friendly with him. We haven't been there in quite a few years now, but I sent him. I did a drawing. The drawing was in the magazine, one of the magazine articles, and I sent him a copy of it. And but the neatest person. And he said, my neighbors are kind of mad at me. Do you think I should paint the house? And I said, don't you dare. Me giving advice to someone on Nantucket. Don't you dare, because it's the prettiest house that you've ever seen. And of course, I photographed it hundreds of times. And now I've gone and given, filled in and I've been very careful to leave little flecks of white through this. It's very important, so that when you're doing the painting, that those little flecks of white add life and color to the whole, to your whole painting. And so very important to do that. And let me just see if I have let me just take me a minute to find it. Let me just see if it's, I guess it's not in this article. No, so it's got to be in the other one. And let me just see if it's in here, because since I'm talking about it, we got to talk about it. And it may not be in this. No, that's in Spain or Portugal. And I know they used it in the frontispiece up in the front. And here's the house.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's a really neat place. It's very historic. It was owned by the first mate, or he could have been it wasn't the captain, but I think it was the first mate of the whaling ship, the Essex.
Oh boy, really?
And that's the one that Moby Dick went after. They wrote a book about the Essex. And they ended on the Moby Dick didn't like trying to be killed, and he tried to kill them, and he crushed their boat, and only 3 of them came back from that 3-year journey on the whaling ship, the Essex. And this is the house. And so it is so pretty, and it's got all the right things going for it. That historic look, and someone will buy it. He's kind of elderly, and I think he owns several houses on that street because he lives across the street. And so someone will buy that house and put shiny yellow clapboard all over it, which would be a shame. And they've done that to some of the others that I painted. So we got tired of going to Nantucket, and then decided we'd go to Maine because our friends went there. And Maine is run down and ancient and beautiful and rocky, and it's just a gorgeous place. And doesn't matter which road you go down, there's something on that road. So I'm putting some of the shadows in. I love Payne's gray, and so I can be a little more adventuresome tonight and give it a little bit of punch to it. And then I'm going to put some washes on the shadows, and I'm using a little bit of Verditer, which is a Holbein pigment. It's way over here in the corner. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it's so I'll just come across and then put the washes all the way across the page here. And I like it when it looks like there's a fingerprint in it, or it gives it a little bit of roughness to it, and that makes me feel even better. So I got that done. And then next I'll go into, I don't know what it is, but the greens don't really set well with me. They never look right for some reason, except
green is a tough color anyway. Most artists will tell you that.
Yeah, it is. Did you see the new blue that they just found?
Yes.
It's a special pigment. It's probably just to drive up the price, and I'll be the one that has to buy it, and it'll cost me hundreds of dollars for a little tube of the stuff. But I'll try it, and Lapis Lazuli used to be the pigment that was the rarest of all the pigments. And they said it was the equivalent of gold in the pigment world. And have any of you been to London?
Yes.
Mhm.
And have you been to Corneliuson's art supply store?
No.
I have a picture of it I'm going to show you at the end here tonight. And how am I doing on time? Am I talk too much or?
You're about halfway through your show.
Oh, is everyone asleep yet? Have I bored everyone to
No,
tears?
I'm not.
Or,
Not at all.
oh, all right. So, I saw, anyway, you like Cornelison's art. I mentioned it to, I asked someone on the street, which way to Cornelison's? He said, you mean Corneliuson's or something, I don't know. But the store looks just like it did in 1855. And the man that owns it said that this, as long as he's alive, it's going to remain this way. And he said he just recently bought the freehold. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I think it's the land underneath it. So he owns the whole kit and caboodle. And they were in the pigment trade at one time, and I guess they still are. And so if you go to Corneliuson's art supply on the web, you'll get a kick out of it. Look for the store itself. And I've done, if you do a Google search, you'll find one of my paintings of it. It's a bad painting, but I just made a blunder here. I'm talking about Corneliuson's and using the wrong green. And so anyway.
So what greens do you use?
This is a sap green. I do like sap green and olive green, and I always mix it with a little bit of brown to tone it down and make it a little more somber. And I'm painting the back of the shadow part of a building, so it's a little darker. And then I'll go over the top of it with a little bit of Payne's gray, just to darken it a little bit. And while this whole area is wet, I'll just reach into it with cobalt blue and Payne's gray to give it a little bit more punch to it. And then I'm working in the shadow part over here, so I'll use my olive green and sap green together. It's just the what green is that? A permanent green. And Hooker's all right. Windsor green, I'm not so keen on it, but I took my students to London for a week, and we went to meet with artists, illustrators, designers, and we went out to see Kit Williams out in the country, and he took us out for lunch in a 15th century pub, and he was just a delight. And he said they were digging near his house out by Bath over that way, and they uncovered a Roman villa, and in the villa had some gold artifacts in the ground. So that gave him the inspiration to write the book Masquerade. And so he made a golden rabbit and then buried it in the ground and then wrote a book on how to find it. And it was on the New York Times bestseller list for 3 years. And finally, a couple of professors in the United States called him and said, "We think we figured it out." And he said, "Yes, you did." And then they were on their way there. And his ex-wife and her new boyfriend dug it up in the middle of the night and tried to ransom it back to him. But anyway, it was a lovely story, and it had so many clues in it, you really didn't know which way to go. But he said in the book that a child of 8 or a man of 80 could find this treasure, and with no knowledge of England at all. So that was pretty good. All right, so I've got some of the greens. So I don't get muddy. Muddy is the worst thing you can get as an artist, as a watercolorist. And so you want to get your palette cleaned off every now and then. And I'll start from scratch again. So that's good. And there's a little bit of Oh, isn't that nice? This palette is a little nicer for me because it has this big area to paint on or mix the pigments. So I like that a lot. And then I have a nice clean roll of paper towels here. And parts of this I like. I like this heavy work in here, the shadow part of the bushes. And now I'm going to work in the background. And it should be a little lighter in some respects. So I'm going to keep it a little lighter green. But I still want some parts of the painting where the sky comes through it, so that's important. And I don't want to cover the trunks as much as I can. That I have to stay away from that. And I'm just going around it, and it's nice. Most of these are B&Bs now. These little places. It's the only way anyone can afford to live there. So the owner would come on the off season when there's no crowds, and then when people travel, they could pay top dollar, $600.
Roger, I wanted to ask you, is the place in the high season, is the place overrun with artists?
Not so much, but there are a lot of artists that go there. Because I've sat outside on the, with my easel and a watercolor box and this palette, which is kind of clumsy to take along. But no, I wouldn't say that. You're kind of a novelty there. That people come up to you and go, "Oh, my daughter's an artist," and all that sort of stuff. And it's very nice. Believe me, it's a friendly place. You just can't afford to go there. That's all. And
Do you have a favorite kind of paint?
A paint
Brand or just?
I do. I like Winsor & Newton. I'm kind of partial to it, because of their standards. Although I noticed some of the pigments that are made by Holbein look a little more finely ground, and they have a little more fluidity to them. So I like them. I have a palette just with mostly Holbein paints too, but I don't use it. And I have every type of palette and watercolor box that you could ever imagine. Every one of them. And not only that, do you know what Craig Young boxes are?
No.
Oh, it's a metal box. And this one's made by the Little Brass box company in England, and they had. I went to their website, and they had. You have to wait a year for his boxes, and they're $500.
Oh,
Geez.
Yes, we're serious here. And this box is based on a design by Charles Roberson. And in the cupboard over here, I have all the original Roberson boxes that you could ever find, except for one maybe. But I have the locket box that goes around a lady's, it's on a necklace, and that's the rarest of them. That one can sell for $500 or $600 on eBay. It's just a little. It's only 1 inch by 1.25 inches. But this is a beautiful box. It's brass that's been painted and all handmade. And here's my color chart that goes with it. And so that's kind of fun. It goes like that. And then it's got a thumb hole in it too. So that's kind of fun. And but I've been doing paintings with oil paints on the covers of my paint boxes. So some of those paint boxes are going to be in the painted room, and I've made pedestals for them, and it's kind of fun. And so I'm gonna just do a little bit more of the darkening of and I'm gonna add a little bit of burnt sienna, which is quite a beautiful color actually. And so I'm losing a hair here, and I'm gonna just go try to paint into some of the darker areas of the trees in the background there. And anyway, so I want you all to go after this pandemic is over and we can travel again. I want you all to go to the British Museum. And as you're facing the British Museum, if you would turn left and go down the street, and it's about 2 blocks on the right side. And it is such a treat to go in there. And my students, I would send all my students there. And when I spent a week in London with the students, I went there, but we also went to the Winsor and Newton factory. And that's why I use Winsor and Newton paints, because they were so generous to us. And they had a museum of watercolor boxes and watercolor kits that they had made for the Queen of England. And it was extraordinary. It really was. And so they were really nice to us too. And they gave us a tour of the factory, and we went in the red matter room and or brown matter room. And, you know, they used a lot of plant pig extracts, which I'm not sure those are the most durable colors, but they're all right. And so now I'm going to do some of the brickwork on the ground here. I could screw up at any minute, and this would be just a terrible disaster.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Well, all right. I'll take your word for it. And yeah, what could be more fun than playing with watercolors, you know? I mean, really, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you
Looks
know,
like you're having a great time.
I am having
Yes.
a great time. My goodness, look at this. It just, of course, you all sound like a quiet group, but I think that's because you're all muted.
That's true.
So I'm going to do a little bit of this. These are cedar shingles on the roof of the mansard building here. And and I go out and photograph mansard roof buildings all the time. I lived in the 3rd Ward of Rochester downtown, where it was RIT used to be there. My wife and I went to RIT, and we lived on Troop Street and South Washington Street, and it was the wealthiest part of Rochester at one time. But then when the school came in there, they all turned into fraternity houses and et cetera. And you know, it was a great neighborhood, but I'm afraid that fraternities don't really do a great job of keeping up their places. And I learned afterwards that there was a Louis Comfort Tiffany house down the street from where I live, but they sold it to RIT for $1,000 in like 1960, and they tore it down immediately.
Oh,
It was one of only 3 or 4 in the whole country designed by Louis Comfort Tiffany, and all that was left was a stained glass window in the Memorial Art Gallery in Rochester. And I saw and it said, you know, I lived at 101 and it was 140 Troop Street, and I went, wow, what's that? You know, so I did some homework on it, and it was an extraordinary house. It looked like the East Avenue of Rochester, you know, just a beautiful, beautiful house. So anyway, so too bad. And don't ever give a beautiful historic home to a university, or you know, if you have one, save it. They'll just tear it down for a parking lot. And then RIT moved. They moved to Henrietta, and that was a good move for them. They became very modern, but we went to school in this very historic district, and it's kind of magical.
My
Yeah.
mother went there too.
To RIT.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Before you, she'd be 104 if she were alive.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I went back this not this summer, I guess it was last summer now. And I'm going to add just a little red. I don't like to do this just quite yet, but there's a couple of chimneys here that I think I could get away with painting them. That looks like it's dry on either side. And I went to the 3rd Ward when I was, we had a show at RIT, and it was just great. And it was fun to walk around the old neighborhood, and it was all filled with hippies and students, and it was just gorgeous. And all right, so what I've got is, and I'm waiting for some of this to dry in here in the trees. And I usually save the red towards the end, but I've added it anyway here. And it hasn't bled at all, so that's good. And the red, you have to be careful because it'll just seep right across the page. And so now I'm going to do a little bit of the, how am I doing on time? 16, all right. And I'm just going to add a little bit of gray wash to the side of this building. This is the shadow side of the building. And then I'm going to add it to this shadow side of the building here a little bit. And then I'm going to add it to the side of the windows here in the shady parts. And, I appreciate you asking me to do this. Drayton Jones is a great friend of mine. I know he did a demo for you.
He
And
did, yes.
I'm not sure if Karen Barnes,
No,
did she show up today?
nope.
No.
I haven't seen her. Let's see.
Oh, she'll come. She'll show up in the morning and say, I didn't read my email last night or something. And but anyway, she's a very talented alumni of
Yeah, she's
Syracuse.
here. She's actually here.
Oh, she is?
Yep.
Well, she has an elephant painting that got in the American Watercolor Society last year, and it's been at the View also in Old Forge, and it is just stunning. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful painting. And I didn't work with her when I was teaching at SU, but she graduated from our program and then went on to, with her twin sister, to Hallmark in Kansas City. And then I think she worked in Maryland somewhere.
I'm going to ask her to unmute and maybe she can tell you that you're full of baloney.
Yeah, I deserve it too. And so.
Hello.
Hi, Karen Barnes.
Hello. Hi, Roger.
Is he telling you the truth about you?
Oh, so far he's right.
Okay.
Did you move to Severna, Maryland or something like that?
Severna Park. Yeah, I worked for an illustration studio in Annapolis.
It had 3 lovely names. What was the name of the place?
It was Wood Ronsville Harlan.
Yes. Isn't that a nice name?
Oh, I know. It sounds like a law firm.
So, but Karen and her sister, does your sister still work there?
No, she left. She
Yeah.
left in 1990, and I took her job.
I remember one of you took someone's job. They said, we're looking for someone just like you, and you said, or she said, I do have someone that's just like me. Isn't that great?
I slid right in there. I don't think anybody noticed.
Yeah. Oh, were they all calling you Kim or anyway, welcome aboard. And now I'm going to do a little bit of the roofs on the buildings, and they're still in daylight, so I want it to have a lot of white in it and not too in your face, and a little bit on the bleached outside. It's Nantucket, full sun, and it is a pretty place. And Karen, do you stay at the Century House, the one with the desk on the 2nd floor? For $600 a night.
No.
And I would never pay that. It's more, actually, it's cheaper to go to Rome, Italy. If you're going to go somewhere, go to Rome, Italy. You get a nice room for $150 a night in the most beautiful hotel you've ever seen. And we stay there. It's just, it's called the San Pio, and it's a lovely place in Aventino. And I so want to go back right now, and but we can't. And so it's just, we always go someplace warm during winter. And
That's not Rome.
yeah. Well, I know Rome gets cold, but any place is warmer than here during the winter.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Is the lake frozen?
Cazenovia Lake or?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is. I don't go out much now. I hardly get out of the studio. But oh, look at that. Some of this looks pretty good, but it's pretty. This is a pretty loose painting, and I'm afraid that I don't usually do a painting in 2 hours. That it's usually several hours at least, and I always take breaks and have a cup of coffee and do something while the paint is drying and et
Well, I
cetera.
can't give you a cup of coffee, but you're sure doing a good job.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. So anyway, and let's see, these are shadow. I'm working my way around the palette a little bit. I'm trying to keep light and shadow in here. And there's a fence in the background. I'll add a little bit of yellow to that. And but we do stay at a lovely place. A friend of ours found it years ago. And it's more of the embassy section of Rome, Italy. And so it's all diplomats, and it's a very quiet neighborhood, not too, although the Saudi Arabian embassy was around the corner, and there were all sorts of people with machine guns in their hands.
I
So
bet there were.
yeah, and but and there's a place there it's right near the Keyhole. So if you ask anyone in Rome where the Keyhole is, and they'll send you to that neighborhood. And what it means is there's a building owned by the Knights of Malta or something close to that, and you can't go in, but you can look through the keyhole at this most beautiful park that frames the St. Paul's Cathedral and St. Paul's. That's right.
St.
And
Peter's.
St. Peter's, you're right. And I'm going to add a little bit of shadowing on the clapboard, and it's just beautiful. The line is like 20 people long sometimes, just looking through that want to look at the keyhole, and our hotel is right near there, and the San Anselmo, the San Pio, and I think they own a couple other ones in the neighborhood too. So I got a little bit of the fence done. And next, this is a wooden fence, but it's white. And so I'll just put a little bit of a wash on it and kind of darken it up in places. And then some of this I'm going to start, I'll get this. This is in shadow mostly here. And this is nothing like Karen does. She's very specific about her washes, and when you see the elephant painting, I'm not sure I'll show it tonight. If I turn it on, the whole screen may go black. I'm a little nervous about it. But I did. And is Catherine O'Neill a member of your group? I know she
Yes.
is.
yes.
She's anyway. I had some suggestions of people that are doing the most beautiful watercolors, and I'll get the list if I don't show it to you tonight. And Karen is one of those people. Catherine O'Neill is one of those people.
She is indeed.
Yeah, Richard Sneary is quite a talented watercolorist. I think he lives in the Midwest somewhere. And I like Eugen Kisnesian. Do you know his work?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. But then there's a man from Burma. I'll get his name wrong, so I better not even say it. But they're mostly paintings of temples that are white. And there's a little figure that's in a red dress with a red parasol. And they're just so elegant and simple and beautiful that maybe we'll get to it. I don't know. So how am I looking?
Got a half hour left.
Okay, all right. So I won't
Doing
talk.
great.
I won't talk as much. I'll just work. No, I won't. All right. So I'm going to add a little red door here. So I like the reds at the end, but I'm midway there. I'm all right, I guess. And it just gives the painting a little pop to it. And while I'm here, I'll tone the background of the flag a little bit with a little blue wash, just a thin wash on that. So, and I want to leave a lot of white in it. So I'll just do it in little sections there. Then let's see, this is a little too wet to touch in there. Some people use hair dryers, but I don't have any hair to dry, so I can't use them, and that is not going to work. I may have to take a run across the room here and grab a roll of paper towels. And what I'm going to do now, I'm using a liner brush. And the liner brushes are very long. I paint with a liner brush with my oil paints, actually. I do these terribly large paintings with a little tiny brush. And I have to paint them each 3 times. So they're very, very labored over. But and I use a 0 and a 1, or a 0, a 2, and a 4, and a 6. And
Why do you have to paint them more than once?
the oil paints, I like the texture, the way they're built up. After, let me see if I can steal one for you. And uh-oh. Well, maybe I can't steal one. All right, hold on. There we go. I got one. This is a building in Menemsha, Martha's Vineyard, and it's painted 3 times at least, sometimes 4. But to build up the texture that I like, it has to be labored over and labored over. And it doesn't get good until it has at least 3 coats on it sometimes. And I also don't like it. So I end up painting the sky 3 or 4 times, every time. And
Wow.
this is a little fishing village, and it's the most beautiful place you've ever seen in Martha's Vineyard. And the harbor is nice. The buildings are nice. It's not too much of it. There's only, maybe 20 buildings. And but it's spectacular. These are on canvas boards, and this is water-soluble oil paints, so that I use walnut oil. There aren't any fumes with it, and so that's why I use that. So
Okay.
what I'm trying to do next is do some of the in-between spaces, and I'm using a Payne's gray on it mostly. I'll add a little brown to it. I could be a little more. So I want this fence to pop, and I'm just going over all these little details here, the spaces between the pickets, and I usually take a little bit more time with this is a lattice. It has some greenery on it, and there's also some. I'll use a little bit of verditer, and I'll paint a little bit of the. I don't like that too much, and. So I'm going to just do a little bit of, I put a thin wash on it, and now I'm just going to do the in-between spaces of the pickets with this liner brush. And isn't that crazy about doing these large paintings? And one of them was 6 foot square, and I did it it took me 5 weeks, working every day, all day just about. Once in a while I'd go outside, and it's not good for you to do stuff like that, but I'm only halfway done. It's the rug painting. If you go to my Instagram site and look it up, it's the Jerez rug painting, and it's going to be 12 feet. So it's going to be, when it's finished, it'll be 6 feet by 12 feet.
Wow.
And I'm only halfway through it. And that was all painted three times with a liner brush.
Wow.
No
Have you
one.
been accused of being crazy, Roger?
A little bit, yeah. And that's all right for artists, though. We're off the hook.
Yes,
You know,
right.
because I've been around a lot of people that aren't artists, they're the crazy ones.
And they don't have an excuse.
That's right. They're just crazy. I mean, at least we have an excuse to be, so I hang out with artists. I really don't have the patience to stand near other people too often now so we go out in the summer. I organized a group. We go out every Friday for about 2 or 3 hours, Friday afternoons from 1 till 3, 1 to 4, somewhere in there. And it gave me an excuse to call up some of these big estates and ask. So what I'm using now is I'm using my hand as a bridge. So I'm holding my hand against the paper so it's nice and steady. Then I'm using my brush with right at the back of it, not at the. You don't hold the brush at the tip where the hairs are. You hold it way back, and it gives you more power, and it also gives you a little bit more control over it. And so that's really important. And the same with my oil paints. I'm always using a bridge of some sort or a maul stick or something along that line. And then I'll give it a little bit of flex on it there. So that's not so bad now. And
Nice.
thank you. And I'll have to grab another paper towel in a minute because I'm almost out of paper towels. But and when it gets towards the end here, I can just distract you by telling a joke and then slip one of the finished oil paintings. You'll never even know it.
Finished watercolors.
Yeah, one of those that I spent, I worked, a month or two ago. I just took a break from my oil paints and did this. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing for a large group. So, but I'm still not sure I know what I'm doing. So this is kind of nice. This is a gold leaf sign. My brush just broke. Gold leaf, the little seashell here. It's a little hard for you to see it. I guess you can't. And but it is. I remember it. It was gold leaf, and all the signs are gold leaf in Nantucket. So that's nice. And then it had a black or a white outside on it. So and I'll see what I could do there. Yeah. And that's a little bit of the roof line there, and that's a little bit of the roof line there. I want to keep the largest brush I can when I'm doing this painting, so I don't get bogged down in the details too much. So that's important. Mike, where did you hear about that blue pigment?
Maybe online first.
Yeah.
Somebody, I have a lot of connections to artists online, on Facebook and places like that.
Yes.
And somebody posted it, I think, but I also saw it in the paper, in the newspaper.
Yeah, it was the first blue pigment in the last 100 years that no
Yes.
one knew about.
Yes.
What's the name? Does it have a name?
Oh, it does, and I've forgotten now, but it was a little
It
too.
is similar to Lapis Lazuli.
Yeah, and it was like $150 for a little tube or something. So
Yeah.
I'll have to wait till it goes to the flea market or something.
Yeah,
before-
sure.
Yeah. So all right. So I'm working my way around. This is some kind of transformer. I don't want to get too dark with it, but I'll give it a little punch there. And then underneath the car, I've gotten really dark here. And but I'll give it a little more pop here. And the tires can go black. And if you labor over it too much, not so good, especially a car, that better to leave it kind of loose and kind of ratty than to overdo it.
Yeah, you're not going to mix up the car with a cow. It'll be all right.
Right. So I want to just run over to my other table a minute and get a paper towel. Okay. That was a quick vacation, but I'm back. And let's see, where is my my nice brush here. What did I do with it? It just disappeared. There's one. All right, we'll use this one. Well, maybe it rolled underneath. All right.
Looking for your liner is under your palette.
Yeah, no, I've moved on a little bit there. So I'll use this. This is a Grumbacher, and it's a Kolinsky sable. And I know there's a kind of a trend away from any animal products, which I happen to agree with in a lot of ways, but I do like my old brushes. And they were super expensive, but the Princeton Brush Company, those India made brushes are quite good. And, who's going to argue with $6,
Right.
So that'll put everyone else out of business. So, and the reason I wanted to go to the Windsor and Newton factory was to see how they made brushes. But when we got there, they said the brush manufacturing is done in Scotland, not in England. So that was that. But the best thing about the Windsor and Newton factory, there were two ladies. They were in their late 60s, probably. They were the funniest pair of people I've ever met. And they this is terrible, but they painted large strips all from one side to the other of just washes, and they were very controlled with it. So they painted giant sheets of watercolor paper with dark to light bands going through it. Then they cut it into little strips. Then they put it in a machine that cut them into little tiny strips, and then they put it in another machine, and it lowered them into place to make the color charts for Windsor and Newton watercolors.
Wow.
They were having so much fun, you wouldn't believe it, and they just got such a kick out of it. That someone came from the United States to go to the Windsor and Newton factory and to see what they were doing, and they were just enjoying the heck out of it. And it was delightful. And but someone in France bought Windsor and Newton of all places, and it's all out of business in England. So I don't think that factory and the Museum of Watercolors still exists any longer. Maybe it belongs to I don't know, but it was so sad to see it go. And those ladies were featured in one of their ads for Windsor and Newton in one of the art magazines. So I really just thought the world of that. So isn't that nice? So anyway, it's fun to go. My students, we had a great time, and it just, London is, if you can't have a good time in London, forget it, I mean, really. And the museums there, the Victorian and Albert Museum, and what places, the British Museum with the Elgin marbles. And all right, so now I'm gonna go into the trees. I'm gonna add some darks in here. I probably could have been a little lighter with my greens, but I'm going to distract you in a few minutes and put one of those other ones in that's much lighter, and you'll never know it. So there. And then this building in the back here was all cedar shingles. And but we did take our bikes with us, or rent bikes with us when we went to Nantucket. And we would ride to the town of Sconset. And that's on the far end of the island. And it's about 10 miles to Sconset. And it is, the houses it's a fishing village, formerly a fishing village. And some of the houses are from the late 1600s. And the roses grow over the tops of the buildings. So that's quite a place to go. And so I spent a lot of time in Sconset taking pictures, and then did the whole book of Nantucket. So so that was kind of fun too. And
Roger, have you ever painted on Monhegan Island?
I did. Well, I haven't painted there, but we went there about 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
and we stayed on the island of North Haven, and then the other, the mate to that was Vinyl Haven.
Vinyl hair.
Yeah, all beautiful places. My goodness. And but we took the ferry over to Monhegan for the day, and it was beautiful. We couldn't get a room, and my wife refused to stay in a. They had the back of a semi truck that was made into an apartment of some sort, and it didn't have any electricity, just kerosene lamps, and you shared the bathroom with 10 other families. And I could not convince her to stay there. It was the only place left on the island, but anyway, it's a quick, maybe it's an hour ferry ride over there. So it's half the fun of going to those islands is the ferry ride.
Sure.
So and once you get there, and I've done a few. There's a giant Monhegan painting here for my room, and so let's see what we got. I need to do a little bit of car work. And
Roger, I have a question about your paper. Do you do much wiping out or scrubbing out on your papers?
Nope. I could later on. I could take out some of the darker areas, but what I have ended up doing is towards the end of the painting I do some spattering with a very fine brush, a small brush. If you want a fine spatter, you use a small brush or a big globular spatter, which isn't as pretty. I use a slightly larger brush, but and I'll do a little bit of that in a few minutes. And I use this. This is designer's gouache, and that tends to stay white. If you use the titanium white, it kind of dulls down a little bit, settles into the pigment on the paper, and so either way is fine. But so I don't have any trouble with that. And but artists used to use razor blades to kind of tear the paper sideways, just use the rough edge of the razor blade, and that was a good way to work for a while. There was a artist here in town called Merrill Bailey, and who was an AWS artist many years ago, 100 years ago. I don't know when it was, but a long time ago. And he used that technique quite often. At one time, you weren't allowed to use white paint on your paintings. You could tear the paper or scar it or cut it a little bit, but you couldn't use white paint. I'm not sure why. Maybe it wasn't a stable pigment. Maybe it turned gray after a while, perhaps. But I'll do a little bit of that now. So I'll add a little bit. I have a little palette that I made. This is a ceramic one, 1994. I made 100 of these, and these little watercolor dishes. And I have a drawer full of them somewhere. And I'll just add a little bit of water to it. I thought I needed it out of the tube, but I have plenty there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap it with my finger as I go along. And what I'm doing is adding a little of that those white areas that disappeared when I did the washes. And I'll go over some of.
Roger, the question actually might have had, and where was it? Roy or Glenn who asked it? Glenn.
Hey, Glenn.
Was actually, Glenn, you correct me if I'm wrong, was if you make a mistake and you want to get rid of something, do you ever use, if you want to lighten something up completely, or you want to draw a light line through and don't want to use white paint, do you ever do that? Do you go through with a thirsty brush, or do you scrape with a stiff brush to get color out of there?
I don't. It always looks like a mistake to me, and I'd rather kind of live with the way it looks rather than it causes you to. It's like if you make a mistake painting a face and then it doesn't look quite the way you want, but if you go back over it you've made it much worse. So you have to watch that a little bit. But you could, when I work commercially, I would make a patch of a color. So if maybe my shade right here on the edge of this window, perhaps, I would hide the edge. And in the watercolor world, you wouldn't do that, but in the commercial world, you would, because you had to fix it. And, the client might have changed something. And so I would take a little piece of paper, I'd sand it in the back to feather it, so it feathered it into almost, a very, very thin piece of paper. And then I would glue it with Elmer's glue onto the paper, and that's the way but in the watercolor world, I think that's frowned upon.
Yeah, it's verboten.
More of a collage.
Yeah. Then someone would see that and go, "Oh, you can't do that."
Yeah, I was wondering, because your paper choice being arches does tend to hold up to, messing around more than some of the other brands. And I was just wondering
Without a
if there's
doubt, this is really thick paper.
Yeah.
And you could get away with it and not really, you wouldn't even see it when you were done. There's a way to, professionals know how to do that. And so hiding it a little bit wouldn't hurt, And so I've gotten a little too dark in the ground. And I like to, when I'm doing my books, I notice that when I would scan all of my watercolors into Photoshop, and then I would go to image adjust levels, and I wouldn't change the color, but I would lighten it a little bit. And when it reproduced, the verditer color would show up a little more. And it was such a kind of it was like, it was like a little bit of this beautiful blue color added to the darker areas of your painting. And so it was like a little treat in the painting itself. It also made the painting less fussed with. And I think that I'd rather have it loose and a little on the sloppy side than to pay attention to all the details and make it all perfect, So, but if I had to, if I spilled some paint on it, here's a zit that I don't like, I put a little fleck of white paint on it, or I could scrape it off with an X-Acto knife and no one would ever know. So I'd be really careful when I did it, so it didn't. But I know when I'm doing the paintings with oils and doing a portrait or a small tiny face, it's better to be imperfect about it than to be too fussy and perfect with it. So just a word to the wise. All right, and so how am I doing on time? 8:48.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
All right, well, so I think this is all dry in here now. I can't remember, is the bottom of the bottom row of an American flag is red? That's correct.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Red.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna just put my stripes in here, and I'll do that with the liner brush. That's why I like using the red at the end, because it adds just pops it out a little bit. And on the sign here, this is a do not enter sign. I'll put a little kind of scumbling in there. And so, I still have a ways to go on this, but I think you got an idea of what I do.
Oh, yeah.
And so let me see what I can do about this. Is my friend Wayne Daniels. The nicest thing about going out with the artists on Friday afternoons is we become really good friends. And painting from life changes your life. It really does. You just get different sensibilities. It's harder to work outside. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. It's
Cold.
it's cold. The last day we went out, we froze. But we went to this great farm that had buildings from the early 1800s, and it was like, wow, look at this place. A stone house, and they made a brick corn crib. I've never seen one before, but it was laid up like an Elizabethan Tudor, a house from England from the 1600s. It looked like that style. So it was all filled in with brickwork. And
Wow.
then, the mice chewed their way in underneath anyway, so it didn't do any good. But it was, I thought it was such a clever idea. And we went to those places all summer. So I'm looking forward to 60-degree days.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 38 or 37 this week sometime. So
That's an improvement on today.
yeah. And then I go out on sunny days, like yesterday was, or the day before, was it yesterday was so sunny, or 2 days ago?
Yes.
2 days ago.
And I go out and take pictures. I need shadows, and I need nice contrasty photographs. And I took my drone out with me, and let me show you a picture I took with it. And this is a barn
Oh, lovely.
near the canal, and I can go, you can see in your iPhone the picture that you're taking, so you can raise it and lower it and get the right. Then I manipulate it in Photoshop, and I've made these buildings taller than they are. I stretched it a little bit to give it a little bit more of a view to it. And the canal used to go right through here, so that was kind of nice too. I wish they had left the canal. When I was in school at RIT, I used to go visit friends at Buff State on, is that Elm?
Elmwood, yeah.
Elmwood, yeah.
Yeah, Elmwood, yeah. And we used to sit in Abraham Lincoln's lap in Delaware Park and go to
In the rose gardens, yeah.
yeah, it was so much fun there, So I'll do a little bit of spattering here. And then the last thing that I'll do, and I won't be able to finish the whole painting here, but you got a pretty good idea. But then I'll go into it a little bit and go back and do a little bit of the outlining detail of. I'm not 100% on this sometimes. Sometimes I think it's just too much, and so I shouldn't pay much attention to it. But I can lighten up some of the areas where the paint is bled a little too much, and so there. And let me just finish with this, and just to get the blue of the flag in there, so that that's important also. And then I'll back it off a little bit with a paper towel and just pull out some of the color in it, so it's not too evident. It's not 100%, but that's pretty tight, isn't it?
That's beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
just 1 minute. Let's see. Look at the bird over there, and then all of a sudden I finished the whole painting. So, but I did not. This is a rough surface watercolor. So this would be rough or cold press, one or the other. Oh, wait, it says 3. And I identified all the papers here. It's 7 by 12 inches. It's 300-pound cold press arches, and this was the third version I did. And these are cold press here, and just little sketches, But I found that trying to do little tiny paintings sometimes is very, very worthwhile. It pushes your skills quite a bit to do them. I've done a little too much blue work with the Verditer, but not so bad, And once they're matted up and then framed, and this is kind of a gutsy one too. My car isn't so beautiful, but so there. And let me see if I could just open this one. This may screw up everything, and it may disappear. And but if I go to this, and then I go to New Share, and go to Basic, and then if I go to, this is the keynote part. This is the last part of it. Let's see if this works. Did it all disappear?
No, they're there, but they're small.
Oh, where is it? Let's see. I probably ruined everything now.
No, it's a stripe down. You need to click on what you want from that.
Oh, I wanted the. I think I've ruined everything now. And what I was trying to get, oh, you know what I did? I did it 5 different ways. So hold on just 1 minute. And I put it in here,
Is that
and I can go to this. This is a keynote.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Do you wanna
So I've
Play
made,
program.
and can you see this?
Several images below each other, but it's not the
like
program.
Okay.
It's
So
like
it's
the
not.
sidebar of your,
Yeah, it's not going to work. So, well, anyway, I put these videos on,
You
and
have to run.
I wanted to talk about the, what is that red thing?
I don't know.
Are they way over here? Oh, maybe I could do it that way. Can you see those?
Yeah.
Now we see the full screen.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
play? Can you
Alright.
go to the top there and play it?
Yeah,
Roger?
yeah. Also, I'll play it. I split it in half. There's 2 parts of it. So this is the painting of the watercolors, and
Got it.
yeah, and it may play. So here it is. And I'm not.
This is Roger DeMuth. I wanted to share with you a little bit about how I work on my paintings. This is a top view of my drawing table. You can see the bracket where I photograph everything. I work on a flat surface, and to prepare for this lecture today, I
Can you see
did
this?
11
Yes.
drawings.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
And then I did 7 finished paintings. It's quite remarkable, I think. And every one of them I thought was going nowhere, and then good things happened. I'm a true believer in the more you do something, the better you get at it. Here are 78 small paintings, 2 by 3.5 inches, that I just did because I wanted to do it. This is a finished painting, and now I'll take you through the steps that I.
So I've done this all over, but what I wanted to get at, these are the inspirational artists that I was talking about. Of course, Catherine O'Neill on the left.
Wonderful.
And this is Karen Barnes on the right. Isn't that pretty?
Yes, it is.
Unbelievable. And Eugen Kisnissian, I'm mispronouncing it, which is terrible, but he's got this beautiful wash technique that he used, the one on the left. It's just gorgeous. This is Marjaleen Bastine, and Karen would know her from Hallmark. She was like a star there. And she lived in Amsterdam, I think, and Kansas City, and somewhere in the Bahamas. She had houses and Porsches in each place. So I hope you're all driving Porsches, but she did. I loved her stuff, and it's very, very tight. I mean, that's really a very difficult watercolor to paint, and it's exceptionally beautiful. And Dean Mitchell,
Oh, Dean
Oh,
Mitchell,
favorite.
jeez.
he can make a back junkyard look absolutely beautiful.
Yes,
I
he
saw
does.
price on one of his paintings of $20,000. So good for him. And on the right is Fabrice Moreau, a French artist that's done sketchbooks of all over the world. And he just goes to a place, takes thousands of photographs, I imagine, and then comes back with things like this. And he leaves a lot of white space in his paintings. So that's the beauty of these. And on the left, James Gurney, who is a very inspirational artist in lots of ways, but really just amazing artist. And he's got hundreds of videos. This is the person I was talking about on the right, Mayo Win Ong. I'm mispronouncing it, but just the power of that watercolor is just stunning. The light and shadow is so beautiful. The colors are just so well thought out. I just love it. And this is that art supply store I talked about in London, Cornelison's. And when you're in there, there is no world outside that store. It's so beautiful. And everything's in those drawers, and they're all numbered. The clock's there, and it says established 1855. And during Christmas time and stuff, the windows are just, out of this world. So, and then lastly, this is my studio this morning. And that's that Oriental rug I talked about painting that's 6 feet square. And that's done with a little tiny liner brush.
Holy mackerel.
It took me 4 or 5 weeks to do it. So anyway, but that's 2 walls of this room. And so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And it all comes apart in sections so I can transport it. And the curtains in this side will be in the center on the left there on that doorway. And then there's an inside room and an outside room, and then an outside larger room, would be the walls of the, I would like to have it as a traveling museum show, but I'm not sure how to do that yet. And then there's a lot of pedestals. There's one right behind this this wall here. And so anyway, you got an idea what I do. So
Is this open? Do you let people come and see it?
the studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, people come here. And I don't go anywhere. So as long as they wear a mask now, I think we're good now.
Are you in the village, or where are you?
You're right on, well, it's so if you went right to the center of Cazenovia, the Link Lane House is the hotel right in the center of
Right.
town.
Yeah, I know it.
And just directly opposite is Mill Street. And you just go on that street for 3/4 of a mile. It changes its name at the bridge, but it's the same street. And we're number 59 Shenango Street. So if you email me, you could come by anytime when you're going through. It's this thing is amazing. I mean, I hate to talk about myself too much, but after you've worked 3 years on one little project like this, it just it goes on and on and on. So now there's parts of it that go on top of the walls, and I'm working on them now. Let me show you. So over the doorway, can you? Oh, you can't see this any longer, can you?
Not unless you
Yeah, stop share.
remove stop share, and we can put
All right, I'll
spotlight
do
you.
that.
Roger.
There you go.
Now I'm
Then-
going to spotlight you.
Let's
First I'm
see.
going to remove, then I'm
Oh.
going to spotlight.
Can you line it up? So I'll just show you all right, so over the doorways anyway, are little vignettes above it. So there's a large circular painting, and then there's animals that'll be around it somehow. Not quite sure, but I started to figure it out today. So
Can you show the inside of that? Show the inside of that.
yeah, this is the way the rugs go about.
Wow.
So you walk through the center of the room. You don't walk on the paintings. I hope you don't anyway.
I have a question for you about when you finally use that. Those paintings that are on the walls, are they permanent on those walls?
No, I think I'm going to use Velcro. Some of the smaller ones may be glued, but I'm not sure about that yet.
Would you, when you go to an art show, would you sell the paintings off the walls then?
No, none of the paintings are for sale. I have lots of other paintings for sale that people do buy. All my watercolors are for sale. Sometimes my friend just died and the family wanted to sell some of the work. I bought my own painting back. I missed it kind of.
So is your room all oil painting then?
It is. They're all oil paintings. The rug is on stretched over 1/2-inch plywood, and then there's a frame underneath that to keep it from warping. And we've overbuilt it. So, the theme of the room is whatever is here today is not here tomorrow. And which is really true in a lot of ways. All those, especially during a pandemic, these little stores that did exist won't exist, and those great places that you knew about that have gone out of business, perhaps, or the trend is to tear down a Victorian, not to put it back in order. So, and then if you go to my Instagram site, you can see the most recent painting I finished is called The Blue House in Utica, New York. And I'm from Utica originally. And it's a great Queen Anne Victorian house. And there's lots of animals in all my paintings. So that's what I do. So.
This has been great,
Well,
Roger.
You have done a tremendous thing tonight. Just I'm
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
enormously impressed, really.
Yeah, thank you. So any other questions?
Do you paint in Cazenovia? Do you go around town and paint there? Or it's such a beautiful town. My daughter went to school there, the college.
Yeah, we go all over the place. We've gone to the park. We've gone to Lorenzo quite a few times. There's a bunch of other estates like Lorenzo in private hands still that are, kind of across the street and around the corner. And we went to this great farm, the Cody farm. It's from the early maybe late 1700s to early late 1800s. And that was just gorgeous. There's a hops barn there that's out of this world. And so we've gotten around. And it also gave me the guts to knock on doors, email them or give them a cold call and say, could we come into your boathouse and paint? And they were so thrilled that we were coming with a group of artists to paint their building, so it was really nice. Plus we got behind into some of these houses, these great estates that the baking powder estate is up on the hill, and the lady that owns it, it was just so delightful to be around her. And she gave us a tour of the house, and it was stunning, So anyways, that's been fun. So yeah, we do go around town. Yeah.
Awesome.
Have
So
you done anything in Seneca Falls?
I go through there every now and then. I got we went to Auburn the other day to get our COVID shot. So we've had our second shot, but I love Seneca Falls. We used to go, along there. We lived in Nunde, and so my mom would be in Utica, and we'd go visit her and drive on Route 20 the whole way. And it was really pretty neat. So yeah.
well, this
And
is all,
those.
I've been recording this whole thing, and it's
Oh.
going to show up on our YouTube channel,
Oh, isn't that nice? So thank you for doing that.
including the questions and answers at the end.
Oh, good. Some of those great houses in Seneca Falls, when you turn the corner there, I think it may
State
still be
Street?
Route 20. Yeah, it's right in the center of town.
Yeah.
But those houses are just, giant. And, there were a lot of mills there that did spun fiber there of some sort, and right along the canal. And it was remarkable. And I got in some of them years ago because my wife was a weaver, and they took us through one of the old factories, and it was still in business with those old mule spinners, and they were making cotton threads there. It was dangerous. The lady that was doing if a string broke, they'd have to run backwards 20 feet, or they'd get run over by this machine.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Roger, can I have a request that if you can take a picture of your finished painting and email it to me, I'll share it with the group on the website and Facebook and places.
All right. You can identify it by the heavy cloud right here, that little blotch there. So you'll
Okay.
know that one. So, and I'll finish this up in the morning to get it a little tighter here. All I need to do is some of the bushes and just the car and the other car and some of just the detail work. And I'd be happy to do that. And I'll also send a picture of my watercolor chart too, so you'll have that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody else?
I just wondered I don't get to work with ink very often, and I do have some nibs and the tool that you use to apply it. Is there anything you can tell me about how to apply the ink without it getting blobby, or I don't work with it. So, I mean, 4 or 5 statements about working with ink that I could go on.
So if you can see this, let's see if I can figure it out. So I keep it at a very low angle, so you can be very fluid with it. And then I always wipe off the tip of it when I dip it into the ink to get rid of the excess, or it'll blob. And so there are no blobs in this whole painting here of India ink anyway. So, and this has to be waterproof ink. So it's Higgins. It says waterproof and fade proof on it, and it's a black ink. They make a brown also, but it isn't as, it bleeds a little bit. So, for what it's worth, this is good stuff.
Thank
And, Yeah, and you can use any pen, but if you pull it kind of towards you, it won't jab into the fibers of the paper. So that's important too. Yeah,
Great, thank you so much.
you're welcome. And if you had anyone has questions, you could email me. I'm very, sometimes it takes me a day or two to get back to you, but I'm pretty good about that. And but I will send you a printout of it or a copy of it. So.
Anne, did you want to say anything to close us
Yeah.
down?
I did. I just want, this is Ann Sessions, Roger.
Right.
I'm the president of NFWS. And I just want to thank you. This has been one of the most pleasant 2 hours I have spent in ages. Just such a delight.
Oh,
In a
Watching you
year.
work and listening to you. It's just been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your stuff with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. I taught for 36 years at Syracuse University, and I just loved it. The politics were a little heavy, but the students were great, and and I drew during every faculty meeting that ever was.
Gotta keep awake during faculty meetings.
When I retired, I sent them all a copy of all my notes that I took during the meetings with these terrible drawings of the other faculty members. And it was pretty funny, but thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate
Okay,
it.
well, thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
And a
Yep.
great evening. Thanks, Roger.
you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Yeah,
Thank you.